Welcome to the final call for empathic influencers to accelerate or be uprooted. I am Empathic Empire-preneur Authority, AliNICOLE Wow, and I am extremely grateful to be joined by Empathic Power Enhancer Gina Gardiner and the Chief Chakra Awakener, Brenda Jacobson. I love these queens, and we have served together in a variety of ways to level up the empathic community. Things that we've done together, we've co-authored works, co-facilitated trainings, and even hosted virtual media tours. And actually, there's going to be some information in the description box where you can learn more about us and our individual and collective works for the empathic community. We are excited to bring forth this particular um, message at this time because it's important for empathic influencers who are actually leaderpreneurs or they are emerging leaderpreneurs. And so the core objective for this particular call is about sharing the current and emerging changes that are taking place for empaths, their greater purpose, and also the importance that they have in the marketplace evolution, and also the shifts that are going to be required for their next level of expansion for the roles that they will play in humanities evolution. So, this is a two-part session, and I'm going to outline what we're going to cover today before I bring forth Gina and Brenda. So, in session one, I will be providing five things that empathic influencers should know about what's emerging and why the time is now to accelerate or be uprooted. And I'm also going to just share um, two of the areas from the five because I have an additional training series that covers all five at length. Gina is going to share the responsibility to shift into new levels of power to accelerate now. And Brenda is going to be sharing about shifting from resisting to responsibility for the higher calling. In session two, we will just have some open discussion and provide some commentary on what we've shared. And we're going to give you a call to action and share special offers and opportunities to support you. So I'm excited with what we're going to be bringing forth today. And I just want to thank both Gina and Brenda for being here with me to facilitate this. So welcome, Gina and Brenda.
Thank you very much for inviting us.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're most welcome. You know, I love when we get together and what we create for the empathic community. Just the experiences that we bring forth are really like none other because we are bringing forth this new greater expansion of the new empathic experience that really brings the new definition and redefines just the holistic, perspective, and especially the things that we need to be shifting and emerging into for all of the things that are expanding for this new world that's developing. So I'm going to jump right into sharing about our core areas, and then as I mentioned earlier, we will talk more about those coverings, in the second session. So before I share about the five things. I would actually like to preface this rendering by sharing about the empathic shift from stall to acceleration. I feel this is really important for me to actually talk about because this will really set the tone and the stage for our main objectives for this experience today. One of the things I'm going to say that most are not aware of as empaths is that empaths are really designed to operate in accelerated ways of beingness because it's actually part of our giftings and our superpowers. So it's interesting when I hear empaths talk about they are slow. It's out of alignment with our true orientation, and you'll see more today why this is really important that we step more into the acceleration. So the reason why I even preface this is because um, one of the primary purposes for this particular call too is it is addressing a specific group of empaths. Okay, so it's not really for every empath, but every empath actually will benefit from this because we all play a part in this great emergence, and we have different unique roles. But this specific call to acceleration is, let me just share this. There's a collective conscious community of empaths. Um, they're empathic influencers, but they've actually played a huge part in the slowing down of humanity's evolutionary shift. Um, they've been delaying on a lot of different things in their process, and their delays are actually causing massive delays in not just their expansion, but others' expansion as well. And the sad thing is that these are people who are actually called to be top leaders, and some already, serving in some of those high level roles. And even though they may have, I should say, they may be showing up a certain way, let's say in the media or even in some of their primary places of influences, and they're showing up as these true sources of empowerment to move the masses forward. However, what I know to be true is that many of them behind the scenes are not as serious about their missions as they proclaim. They resist change, slow to shift, a lot of times even dishonoring the very people who are called to, to help them up level. So, actually, before I share the five, I'm actually going to talk about a few common characteristics. And as I'm sharing this, like I said, this particular call, it is meant to be extremely empowering, even though in the process, some of you, if you fall into these categories or have some of these characteristics, you may feel a little sting. And that's okay too, because this is a time of pivotal shifting. It's a high level time of importance. And honestly, we don't actually have time to be sugarcoating anything. Because as leaders, the three of us here, we are called to actually call empaths up at this time to start this acceleration process because we know the criticalness of this time. So, a few characteristics that have definitely come up for me in case studies over the years, but even more recently, is a lot of these empathic leaders or influencers, they are huge time wasters. They are not good stewards of their time and their missions. A lot of them are perfectionists. So they spend a lot of time in the perfectionism zone, which is extremely a place of illusion. Because that is an illusion. There is no arrival to perfectionism. It's just a continuation of a journey. Um, Even though they have like everything they need, they still procrastinate and operate in these paralysis modes. So it's interesting dynamics. They tend to complicate the simple, even when everything is actually laid out for them with extreme clarity and even in direction. And they still will stall and overcomplicate, just things that are just black and white, just one, two, three, ABC. A lot of times they spend time arguing for their limitations and they make excuses. Again, some of the things I'm sharing, these aren't things that you will find as they're showing up in their presence, whether online or before people. These are the actual unseen dynamics that go unnoticed or happen, behind the scenes. A lot of times they have spent time looping in lessons, and it's like they're having to learn everything the slow and hard way. They start becoming, if you've ever heard the term professional students, it's like they start becoming professional students in their experiences versus actually evolving in mastery in an accelerated format. Um, Another characteristic is that they withhold sharing their greater gifts in the world, and this falls into that perfectionist, kind of category too. And not just trying to make things like cosmetically right and get everything right, even though that's a huge part that falls, one of the traits within this particular spectrum that I'm speaking about. But more so, they focus a lot on unhealthy disposition instead of a healthy self disposition. And so, what I mean by this is that a lot of times they'll spend more time on, I don't feel worthy, all these different things that um, ultimately don't make a lot of sense, especially when they are supposed to be in these roles of empowering and trying to bring to others the very things that they aren't really allowing themselves, to embrace. And even if they've embraced it at a certain time in their journeys, and they're sharing from that place, remember, we're always called to up level. And so when we don't actually up level, that means you're operating out of a deficit. And when you're operating out of a deficit and you're trying to actually pour into other people, you are pouring that vibration, into others, as well. So it's not a healthy disposition if you're looking at yourself as missing something incomplete, where it's a journey continuously. You should be sharing, just, not withholding the greater gifts. A lot of things, another area, I'm just thinking of several of these characteristics. Um, a lot of times they choose to stay stuck in old patterns. They start regurgitating old stories, creating these confirmation bias experiences, all to stay in delusionment. That's basically what it is. Um, some of them also get addicted to drama. They're not really always aware of this, but they get addicted to entertaining drama, lower vibrational content, very interesting dynamics. So, something else I actually want to share before I do get into talking about the five is, and I've had this conversation actually with these queens, here we've, in our empathic work that, we've done together, is that sometimes they're unaware of who they've actually become, um, that mimics kind of a lot of their experiences, like an example, they become these energy drainers. Some of them become very self absorbed and even narcissistic in their behaviors. Um, they kind of become the abusers that they've had in their experience, because what has happened is they've absorbed a lot of those traits within, like I said, the experiences that they've had. Um, Sometimes they can be master manipulators of circumstances and try to be in control of their evolutionary process and play this um, turtle slow mode. Again, empaths are designed to be very accelerated beings. And yes, it is. All empaths actually are, because I know some people, well, no, that's not true. Everybody's different. Everybody is an empath, has a certain empathic experience. But within our encoding, not the one that most play from, is we are designed to be accelerated individuals. It's part, again, of our superpower, our orientation. It's just a matter of how we tap into that and, move into that. We do have the times where we have to be slowed down in some cases, but it normally isn't by what we're doing. It's normally by some type of circumstance outside of us that slows us down enough so that we can continue to evolve and to wake up. But initially, the empath themselves should not actually be operating in a slow mode. It's like working against your unique orientation. So I've shared just, a couple of things, and I think it was important for me actually preface what I was going to speak about before getting into this, because the time has come, and it's time to either shift from the stalling to the acceleration, because where we are in this evolutionary process is that we have shifted into the how can I say it, we're accelerating, but it is more of an acceleration portal. Okay, an acceleration portal of possibilities, because what it's doing is it's ushering us into this new trajectory of a new world. So this is why it's time to really start accelerating, because we've got a world anew that is emerging, and those who are aligning and awake are the ones that are going to shift in this acceleration into that greater expansion. So let me start talking about the 5 things that empathic influencers should know about what's emerging and why the time is now to accelerate or to be uprooted. So the first one is be a part of the acceleration or the elimination. And the second one is it's morphing time, and it's time to move beyond the metamorphosis. It's basically it's time to stop looping in the lessons that I was talking about before and really launch into the new from this empathic cocoon experience. The third one is it's time to adopt, adjust, and adapt to this acceleration phase to step into this higher calling to service. And then the fourth one is it's time to collapse duality. You either are going to become divine and decisive or be dismissed. The fifth one is get grounded in the now or simply be uprooted. So I mentioned that I was going to share 2 areas. And the 2 areas I felt called to focus on was the be a part of the acceleration or the elimination, and also the get grounded in the now or to be uprooted. I really believe that these are the 2 that are going to set the stage for what Gina and Brenda will share about in their mini messages. So be a part of the acceleration or the elimination. So as I mentioned, that decision time is here. You're going to have to make a choice. And as an empathic influencer, especially at this juncture of the journey, you are going to have to decide if you're going to continue to be part of the problems of this world or the new solutions and make a difference. Because trust me, if you're in resistance and you're working against what's emerging, you are part of the problem and part of what's slowing down the greater expansion. So as I mentioned, that this this acceleration portal, so it's already expanded even into this current trajectory to start reconstructing reality anew. So if you aren't synced up with this rhythm, trust me, you will be part of the elimination round. And that is actually not funny, it's actually really sad, but it is the brutal, honest truth. So I'm also going to bring this up. It doesn't matter what you've done in the past, the successes that you've had to serve in your purpose, or even the contributions that you've made for the greater good. If you have participated in any of the characteristics mentioned above over the last several years, and especially recently, you will find yourself eliminated from the evolution of our greater purposes, and missions if you don't make the shift. So, as I mentioned before, there's really only 2 portals expanding at this time, and those are the acceleration and the elimination portals. It is separation time, and trust me, believe me when I say this, you will fall into one of these categories or one of these portals, whether by intentional design or intentional default. It is a conscious choice either way. The elimination now, that doesn't mean if you fall within that, doesn't mean that you are just doomed and won't ever fulfill a purpose. But here's the interesting twist to this. What will happen is that after the great awakening and expanded illumination era really starts to overtake as the new norm, you're going to find that you are going to be sort of shifted into some type of secondary alternative plan with a role of service that will not make a greater impact as the life purpose or the mission that you were destined for. So let me just give a few examples to clarify. So you might be working, let's say, after you've had all these lessons and all these different things, you might find yourself working for some large mission or movement rather than actually being the one who created the movement and it was part of your divine assignment. So something that was given to you to do will actually be shifted and given or transferred, if you will, to someone else. And you might find yourself having to take a back seat or a side seat in service to something that was actually supposed to be for you to carry out. And while some might be thinking, especially getting caught in the confirmation bias and slow mode, mentality, would think, well, that's fine because even if that happens, I'm still fulfilling the purpose and I'm still doing some good. Um, but I'm going to break the news to you. Nope. Mm-mm. It's not going to work like that. There will not be this confirmation bias thinking security net. It will not be able to save you from the continual lessons because it will be like a scar in your consciousness as a constant reminder, which when you have those constant reminders, that is lessons on loop because you've already created so much momentum previously to be on those loops. But to create it where you're actually awake to why things are, and then you can't actually shift out of that because there's so much momentum. No, that's unbearable, honestly. So you never will find kind of complete comfort or peace, about this. Again, it doesn't mean you completely doomed, all is lost, but trust me, there's going to always be this void that you did not participate in the greater expansion that you were called and designed, to be. So you're going to feel out of place, even in serving in some roles. You're going to feel a little bit out of place, just based on what the encoding of this trajectory was for you to be playing out in. So this is why it's important to step up and accelerate. So quickly, I'm going to share about getting grounded in the now or being uprooted. Again, all of these I actually expound upon more in my teaching, and training for these five core areas. So getting grounded in the now or be uprooted basically just plays off of what I've spoken about. So if you don't take heed in the present and start really leveling up to accelerate, you won't be able to continue to participate in the expansion with others who have actually stepped up. You will be uprooted from the experience. Some way, somehow, the alignment will not be there and trajectories will shift and you just won't be able to sync up with the people who are planted, all right, in this higher experience, because only those who are planted with what I call the strong bamboo roots in this evolutionary experience, these are going to be the ones who are going to be able to participate at the highest levels to serve and make a significant impact and income as the better world is formulating. So if you're not willing to make these shifts, let go of past stuff, embrace these new ways of beingness that I've been, kind of sharing about, but we'll talk more about this if you attend or listen to my training where I talked about the adopt, adjust, and adapt, that portion. If you don't actually sync up and embrace those new ways of beingness, then you will certainly be uprooted. So I want to now invite Gina and Brenda. So we'll quickly hear from them. Gina will quickly share about the responsibility to shift into new levels of power to accelerate now. And then we'll hear from Brenda about shifting from resisting to responsibility for the higher calling. So Gina, I'd love to hear from you. And then as soon as Gina finishes, Brenda, you come right into sharing.
I'd like to reiterate that empaths have a divine purpose, and that is to help humanity make the transition to a new higher level of consciousness.
Yes.
I would say everything in your life to date has been in preparation, but there is a critical time frame, and that time frame, as you've just so eloquently said, is now. Now, the challenge is, I believe, and I've worked with many empaths and many who are doing incredibly great work. However, what I've noticed is, if you imagine an iceberg, that people are operating at the level of the tip of the iceberg, when there is so much more power to come. It needs people to give themselves permission to move forward. You mentioned momentum, and for me, momentum is so important. Whatever you have done so far, as great as that is, it is infinitesimal in comparison with the power that you have if you have the courage to own it, and also your capacity to help within the world if you choose to do that. And it is about having the confidence and the faith in yourself and universal consciousness and connection to get out of your own way. You know, ultimately, the only person who has the power to decide whether or not you're going to play small and the equivalent of a candle in the dark, or whether you're going to step up and become a beacon of light for other people. And having the faith to do that without the proof, without somebody saying you know absolutely it's going to happen in this way at this time, you've got to let go of the illusion of control and really tune in to that powerhouse that is you, and let go of anything that is limiting you or keeping you stuck in that story of limitation. The gap's widening and the shift is accelerating. And you have everything to achieve that success within you. So I'd ask yourself, what is it that you're resisting? What do you need to control? Why are you not following the divine guidance? Because when you do, you'll truly be the best version of you. You have an important job. It is time to step out and step up.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that was great, Gina.
Thank you.
I can attest to all of this because I've kind of recently stepped through that resistance and into the flow. And I thought I think I was on purpose. I was recognizing I'd made the shift from a company that I'd spent 5 years building, and I moved out of that and really listened to that divine guidance but I wasn't willing to. So I jumped into the water, but I wasn't willing to let go of the shore. And that trusted friend that I could control. I love the way that you put that, Gina. I wasn't willing to just let go and go with the flow and have absolute faith that it would take me to a greater place. And that's the shift since Gina and AliNICOLE came into my life and really kind of kicked my ass off the shore and into that flow. I can't, it was one of my clients in one of my treatments had this message come through to her that said, what fear makes solid turns to mist when we embrace it. And that was exactly what I experienced. Is there was so much fear around letting go of that shore, around just trusting the process and moving into that higher acceleration, that and that was my resistance. And when I finally just let go of it, everything that I was afraid of, everything that I feared would happen if I didn't have absolute control of this, just evaporated like the mist. And I'm just picking up, I'm fairly new to this. I'm picking up acceleration as we go. But as that happens, the incredible opportunities that I couldn't have even imagined, I couldn't have seen them from the shore. And these opportunities just, every week something new and vital is coming into my life and helping to clarify what I'm doing here, how I'm doing it, and where I'm moving with that. So thank you both, ladies.
A pleasure. If I could just add that I think that the biggest shift, I think, for you and for me and for the people that we're talking to, is once you take ownership. I've taken ownership of me and have the confidence to own what's true for me in terms of time, resources, vision, standing strong and finding a new way. Once you do that, then the doors of opportunities open.
They absolutely do. One of the things that AliNICOLE had touched on that is really critical in this is having a really solid ground.
Yes.
For people who don't have that solid ground, stepping out onto a cloud or jumping into the river, whatever metaphor you want to use, is very, very scary for them, because they do feel like they are going to get lost. It is when you set that ground and that foundation, and you know truly who you are, and are very, very grounded in that, it is much easier to step into that, into the flow and get
absolutely. Yes,
up
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll pick this up to talk more about and expound, more about what we've shared, so far. I just want to say that everything that you both stated was just excellent, just great, and I am looking forward that we will continue, in this dialogue, when we resume, because there'll be the opportunity, like I said, we can share, a little bit more. But I think that this was the perfect setup to segue into just the conversation we need to have, and then also too how we can best, support others moving forward. So again, excellent messages. And we will speak more about this experience when we resume with our second session momentarily.